Hi, I'm Stephanie.
I'm Seth, and this is The Forever Young Show. The most powerful force in this world is a woman who knows who she is, why she is here, and what she wants to accomplish.
And that's where self-care comes in. As a woman, it is my opportunity and my responsibility to take care of me.
Self-care for your mind.
Self-care for your body.
Self-care for your money.
Our mission is to serve women as they fulfill their irreplaceable roles in families, society, business, the fabric of humanity.
So let's get this show on the road. We are here today in the studio, bright ladies with McKenna Woolley. Thank you, McKenna.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Excited to be here.
Stephanie so wanted to have you on the show.
I did.
Okay, why?
Oh,
Tell me why. I'm interviewing you first.
oh wow. Okay, this just
We're
took a
going to
turn.
find out if we're worthy, and if this is a really short episode, then we didn't pass.
All right. Well, it actually kind of goes back a ways. I've never even talked to you about this.
Okay.
But I started seeing you in some different like Instagram or Facebook groups.
Okay.
And just seeing you comment on things. And I was drawn to you.
Sweet.
And I was like, I want to be her friend. I want to get to know her.
Oh, I like that.
And, but I wasn't sure how to do it without coming off creepy.
I can help you with that.
We just talked about this.
I didn't know he could help me. The more that I saw you talk and post, and I just kept feeling like this draw, like I need to be your friend. And I
Okay.
didn't know why. I didn't know if it was for you or for me or both or
Yeah.
something in the future. And I was just like, for a long time, I've been like, how am I going to become her friend? Like, I only know her through social media. And
That's literally all of my friends. All of my
Really?
BFFs came from social media.
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
So it's working.
It's working.
Yeah.
It actually works.
Yeah. And then Ashley Bridgewater was like, oh, I've got to introduce you to one of my friends. I think you guys would just jive.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, sweet. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. She kept like trying to create these
Yeah.
connections for us.
Yeah, she did. And then just recently, it seems like we've connected a handful of times.
Yeah. Yeah.
In
You've
just
been
the
coming
last-
to my stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's good. My Leo needs validation.
Yes.
So that it's
It feels good.
to feel.
It
yeah,
does.
Like, okay.
Yeah. Remember, I'm a fellow Leo, so I
Yes.
understand.
Oh, yes. We do need validation.
Yes. So
And
That
it's
was
not
it.
wrong. It's not wrong to seek it. So
Oh, there's permission.
yeah.
That
permission.
felt good.
There we
Thank
go.
you.
Yeah.
That felt good.
I'll do my
What's you?
little.
What are you? What are you? We gotta know first.
5'11". Like
And when's your birth date?
Oh, you're talking about.
Astrology.
And you're taller than 5'11", but go ahead.
We're going to be talking about Jesus, crystals, and astrology.
Yes,
and,
all the
and seeing how
woo-woo.
those.
And how they marry each other.
Okay, Libra.
Okay. September-ish. Are you September
October.
Libra?
October
Libra.
16th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those who like to send me gifts, our mailing address is. So you just want me to be intuitive and see that if you're actually moving.
Yeah. You're very intuitive when I'm in labor.
I am.
Yeah.
What a blessing.
Yes.
We
like
got to
that.
do 2 home deliveries.
Sweet. I've done all home deliveries. And it's the best.
It is.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Seriously, me too.
Did you have assistants? Midwives? Or were you the midwife?
So the
Mid.
first.
You were the mid.
So I had 2 kids previously. And then so the first one we had together, we did plan on a home birth. Because with my second one, I had some injuries in my spine with epidural.
Yep.
And so just, we got pregnant and just talked about wanting a midwife. And at first I wanted to do it in the birthing center.
Yeah.
And, but Seth knew that like my end goal, like I really, really, really wanted to do one at home.
Yeah.
But I was so nervous between, having that experience at the hospital.
Yeah.
And then also my sister had a stillborn
Yeah.
before I found out I was pregnant with my first.
Yeah.
And then my ex-sister-in-law, I think 2 years later, had a stillborn. And so,
It's a lot of fear to heal.
yes, a lot. And so we just went to the clinics and we didn't say for sure one or the other, but we'd ask questions. And Seth was always, that's another time that you were very intuitive, was asking the right questions to give me peace to be able to do it at home.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we did it at home. So the first one, the long story, it's actually pretty amazing story. But long story short is we called the midwife when my water broke, and we thought we had a few hours.
It was 9:08 p.m., I think. 9:06, 9:08 p.m.
No, I think the first call was the second call when my water broke. Or no, I can't remember. All I remember was...
He remembers. 9:08 is pretty
She was born at 9:28. And,
okay.
From the time my water broke until she was in her arms.
So she wasn't.
She did not show up.
She didn't show
on
up.
time.
So it was unassisted.
Yes.
She was on her way.
Yeah.
She was on her way. And so from the time my water broke until she was in her arms was like 8 or 9 minutes later.
Amazing.
And I was,
amazing.
because I didn't know that I was in transition.
Yeah.
Until she started crowning, and he was out talking to the midwife.
Yeah.
On the cell phone.
Yeah.
So I was alone in the bathroom, in the bathtub.
Amazing.
I was freaking out.
Oh.
I went into complete shock, honestly.
Yeah.
I could feel her coming and that I was transitioning.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it until I saw her crowning.
Yeah. You're
And
like,
then-
okay.
And then he walked in and I was like, Seth, she's coming. And he's like, who's coming? I'm like, she's coming right now. He's like, who is coming, Stephanie? I'm like, her daughter is coming right now. And so he comes over and sees her crowning. And I think he might remember it now, but for a while he couldn't remember that he did this. He looks down and sees her head and then was like, oh, Lord, help me. And then he just got right to it and,
Hopped in the tub.
There you go.
Hopped in the tub.
See, you were a midwife. You were a man wife or
man
husband wife.
I was a mid-husband.
Mid-husband.
I was a
Yes,
mid-husband.
there you go.
I just
the right
wanted to be
verbiage?
there. I just wanted to be there. I would tell you that is almost one of the most spiritual experiences I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
Being able to bring our daughter, with you and to hold her in that tub.
Yeah.
To do a water birth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's powerful.
Yeah.
It's powerful. Babies are amazing, but to be that close to the whole process and unashamed, no social constructs that are tainted or uninspired, right?
Yeah.
Just beautiful. It was absolutely just beautiful. Mm-hmm. All of it, everything.
Yeah.
And to hold her there, literally the midwife, I had my phone on the edge. We have a large tub. And stairs up to it, right? So we have all this room. I set my phone down. We're FaceTiming. She's like, do you have FaceTime?
So I was literally in shock at this time. I could not feel anything going on with my body.
Yeah.
Because as soon as he was in there, I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah.
And I just let
You're
my
like,
body take over. But at the same time, I had been holding her in, which is horrible. And I paid for it afterwards.
Yes.
So I was in shock. And, he was talking to the midwife and she's like, do you have internet? Because, we live out in the country.
Yeah.
And I totally came out of shock and was like, oh no, she is not going to tell him to YouTube it, is she?
Let's record it.
First thought.
Not to record it, but because when you don't know.
Oh, I go search things on YouTube. How to deliver a baby that's
So
crowning.
that's what I was thinking.
Right at that minute.
Now.
Right? So
It's
that's
20-minute video. I don't have
No
that long time.
instructions needed.
I gotta watch that on 4X.
You're good.
so as soon as she was like, okay,
So
FaceTime
funny.
me. This was before you were FaceTiming. You were just on the phone. And so she's like, FaceTime me. And I was like, whew. And I totally went back into shock. I couldn't feel anything.
Yeah.
And I had fetal ejection where, my body just pushed her out.
Yeah.
So it was very quick. And he likes to joke. Well, he hasn't done it a lot lately. But he used to say all the time, yeah, just call me Dr. Mulder. I'm now accepting patients for delivery. I'm like, hey, you did not deliver the baby. I did.
Nope.
You caught
Nope.
the baby.
We
That's what she always says.
Switch that verbiage.
I always say I
Switch that
delivered it.
verbiage.
But I truly, if we're talking about sports, if you deliver something, you're sending something. So I think you're totally
her body
proper
did
with
that.
But
Her body.
that's right. I was happy to be there.
You're an
honestly.
assistant.
Hey,
Yes,
you know what? A connection that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And honestly, as the midwife's talking us through this and you're holding your baby, she's like, okay, hold her like this. Hold her, I think she was face down. Yeah, she was face
in the
down at the
water.
time. And just chill like that for a minute. It was just to be able to be so intimate with that whole process.
Yeah, to slow it down, to not be in a rush.
Yes.
Birth is literally what sent me on my health journey. Not giving birth, but getting pregnant and getting ready to give birth was that thing that was the catalyst for me to change my entire lifestyle, to go from very conventional upbringing to very holistic. That was
Holistic
my
motherhood.
journey. Yes, for sure. Because my first birth, I went from, I'll test the waters. I'll go to an OB. I went to the same OB all my sister-in-laws go to, and he told the same jokes that I heard my sister-in-laws say he told, and it was like, okay, this seems kind of conveyor belt-ish. Like you're in there for 15 minutes and, hey, do you have any questions? And you're like this new mom. Yeah, I don't even know what to ask. Like you don't even have material to ask with. And so I was like, it set me on my intuition journey. And I feel like every child that I've had has sent me on an even deeper intuition journey. And I think many, many women are stripped of that because we give up our authority to the outside source, to the doctor, to the hospital regulations, like to anything that basically gives us these constraints. We are giving up our intuition. We are giving up our instincts and our motherly in our authority. We're handing it over to someone else. And so that's something that like sent me down my passion train. I don't know what it is, but yeah, birth it's one of my favorite topics.
Me too.
So, yeah.
It's powerful.
Yeah. Because it transforms you as a woman, and it really connects you to all of your emotions, and that our emotions are our superpower as women. That's what literally like can shift a man's desires. It can help him step into his masculine. Like if we just tell them our feelings, if we're sad, they want to fix it. Right?
I'm not sure how I feel
know.
about this.
I'll explain. We'll talk about this later. We'll divulge the secret to getting a man to be a man.
Awesome.
But yeah. We haven't even gone to the intro yet, guys.
This is amazing.
That's all right. This is the intro. Hello, welcome. This is how we do it. We just throw you the meat.
Sweet.
We talked about intuitive motherhood. Pardon me, holistic motherhood, because that is something that is part of your fabric, right? Who you are and your superpowers. Intuitive art. Yeah. You're an intuitive artist. Healing mind, body, and soul after infant loss.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll talk a little about that.
Yes.
You're sourdough superwoman.
Yes.
According to Stephanie.
It was delicious.
Yes.
I'm going to withhold my judgment until I actually get the goods to test it.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Do you make multiple? Because Steph had some of your sourdough. Do you do like a jalapeno cheddar kind of a?
No, I'm basic.
Okay.
I'm really basic. I'm a one-hit wonder in the sourdough world. I went down the sourdough train like 7 years ago before it became trendy, right? Yeah. So 2020 is like what pushed sourdough into the forefront. But I started fermenting foods like when my second daughter was born. We were living in a house and it was convenient, and it was like, hey, I'm going to learn how to do kombucha and water kefir and milk kefir and sourdough. And I literally fermented everything under the sun, right? Like going back to traditional roots. It's like, how did we do it? How did we do it before we did it? So that's what I started down. And then I kind of settled on my method with my sourdough. And then we moved into an RV. So I was like, my experimenting kind of got a little bit stifled. So I think once I'm in my own house and can get creative again in the food world, then I'd adventure to some other options.
Why did sourdough explode in 2020? Was it COVID?
Yeah, COVID.
Everybody's home.
I think people were like, well, I don't know, bread seemed readily available on the shelves, or I guess most things went out of stock, right? So you have to learn how to use your resources. So people probably, to some degree, had some amount of food storage and some amount of like maybe wheat grinding or whatever. So it was like, hey, well, how do I actually make bread? And that became like some push to really learn how to utilize the resources that we had. So I don't know if bread was off the shelves. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know that it was.
But
I also wonder if it's because a lot more people started looking into natural approaches to strengthen their immune system or
gut health,
help their body.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like it was pick a side, right?
Yeah.
Like anyone just which way am I going? Am I going vaccine route? Am I going holistic route?
Yeah.
You know, it was, I think, the catalyst for many, many people in the world specifically to decide like, what's camp am I in?
Totally.
Right. What calls to me, right? Like what do we need? We're home.
Yeah.
We got concerned about our finances, you know, because maybe we're working, maybe we're not working.
Yeah.
If you are working, your entire work environment.
Things were shifting.
Everything's shifting.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of a spiritual up-leveling. And I think a lot of people awoke to what was happening in the corruption world, right? So that's where like people turned a little more like, I think I'm going to lean holistically on this one. But, you know, in the holistic world, there was still a lot of upheaval too. So it's interesting times. Yes. Don't want to go back.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you my opinion on the sourdough when I actually get to taste it. But for now, with Stephanie's stamp of approval, you do have the sourdough superwoman.
Oh, believe
title.
me, the 2 loaves she brought were gone in minutes. Like she came over to get some and she's like, "Oh, you guys, okay, we should get the other one." No, this one is
already halfway.
This is
the second one. She's like, "Oh,
perfect."
She was excited. Like, "Oh, good, everybody loved it." So.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's gone in our house instantaneously too. So
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Maybe that's partly why I haven't learned yet, is because I know it'll be a lot of work and it'll be gone in seconds.
It'd be a constant. Mom.
More and more. Yeah. I have some on the counter right now that I've completely forgotten.
So you do a lot of work with emotional release, right? So what does that look like for those that aren't sure or want to learn more?
Well, I guess I should give some context to healing journey, right? So it started with the birth thing. I became like slightly more intuitive with each birth. And my third daughter, we were RVing. I was pregnant with my third. And I really felt prompted to birth unassisted. So we were on the road. I never saw a doctor at all during my whole entire pregnancy, midwife, any sort of person. I would go to Walmart and get my blood pressure taken, I think we ended up buying a blood pressure cuff, and I would do my own stuff and have my own like strips to pee on to test my ketones and all that. And I just took everything into my own hands because we were traveling, but also I just felt like it was part of this journey with this particular child. And so I ended up birthing completely unassisted, had no one but my husband there, my mid-husband, and my children. And it was exactly that birth needed, but also the transformation that I needed to step into my intuition. So she was born in January of 2020, and we named her Madeline Claire. We named her after my husband's stillborn sister. So we just felt very impressed that her and this sister had a very divine connection. And it took us a month to actually name her. We named her we called her baby for the entire month while we were like back and forth on names. And so we ended up naming her a month later. And I felt like really comfortable with naming her Madeline after her stillborn sister because she had lived, like there's kind of these hesitations sometimes like, oh, is it bad? Like bad woo-woo juice,
Yeah. So
anyway, we named her that, and it was like kind of this healing moment for our family and for this my husband's family. So come end of 2020, we were living in Florida. We came to Utah for Christmas, but also for my grandma's funeral. She had passed away at the end of 2020. I think she had been wanting to die for all these years, right? She was hitting the end of her life. My grandfather had passed away quite a few years ago, and she was just ready. But I think 2020 just was like that loneliness factor. The last time I saw her, it was through a window. Like it just was like that moment of like, I think she was just completely ready to go. We all came to Utah for Christmas and whatnot. And we came, visited, and then we visited family in Idaho. And then we came back down and we're staying with family. And Claire, our daughter, passed away in a sleeping accident over that time of spending time with family. And it was the most shocking, crappy, horrible thing any parent could ever imagine, right? It's what everyone says. When I tell them I've lost a child, everyone says, I can't even imagine. And
how old was she?
She was 11 months old. So she was born in January and she passed away in December. So she wasn't even a year. Every time, like I couldn't even imagine it, right? We're in this situation, this shocking event happens and I'm in it. And, you know, I can't even imagine that because you kind of go through that shock of that complete body spirit disconnect. And that's like a literal thing. Your body literally detaches, your spirit literally detaches from your body. And like it takes a while to like reintegrate. But so that pushed me down this emotional rabbit hole, right? So I had done all the physical healing. I had gone through learning about minerals. I learned about fermenting foods. I learned about all these different holistic herbs, homeopathy, like all the things that you learn about when you go down holistic rabbit holes, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was kind of starting down the energy, spiritual healing at the kind of precipice of Claire's death, but it was like, that's when it was like, I actually need to learn how to implement all of these modalities that I've been learning.
Emotionally.
So, emotional healing, physical healing, everything, because it takes your body for a trip, right? So you're going through grief, your adrenals are burnt out, you are in shock, but you also go through, like, grief lasts forever. Like, I'm never going to live without grief. Like, I will have to grow around grief, but it will always be a part of me because we are physically detached, right? So I have to learn how to live around my grief waves and around triggers and all of these things that you're never really, I mean, a lot of us have trauma of some kind, right? And it doesn't matter how simple it is or how small, like it is, trauma is trauma, like being bullied in school or, you know, these are those things that kind of get stuck with us and they stay in our bodies. Like any unprocessed emotion, if you've read The Body Keeps the Score, it talks about that, like how our body will literally hold that memory and it will manifest in other physical ways. So literally this last week, I did emotional healing relating to my skin because my skin literally was nuts after I lost Claire. Like it just completely, it wasn't even a breakout. It was just like rashy, everything. It would come in waves, but a lot of the waves of when it would break out were on like Claire's death date or Claire's birth date or, you know, different things that were really showing that it was manifesting as an emotional thing. So I'm just really obsessed with understanding because like in the modern medical world, like we look at symptoms, right? We get those symptoms and we're like, okay, what things do I need to take or what medications do I need? But in the spiritual world, it's like, okay, your symptom is the signal. And you look, instead of looking for like the physical root, you look for the spiritual root. And so for me, the spiritual root was, for my face healing was, I can't fake it anymore. I can't put on a pretty face. Like my face is literally indicating that I need to ask for help. And I am not asking for help. I'm not vocalizing my needs. And that's when my skin's like, okay, I'll vocalize.
Let me help you out.
Let me help you. Because that's the catalyst for me. I'm like, okay, my face is important to me.
That's time to do something.
I got to show up in podcasts and social media and right. And I'm like, I can't do that when I feel embarrassed about showing who I am. So my face is like, yeah, because you need help and you're not asking for it. So once my conscious mind acknowledged that, then my subconscious mind was like, okay, I'm going to stop sending that signal to you. So all those things are related. So that's, I don't know. So going through grief, all of those things is what set me on the, hey, I've got to learn how to deal with emotions. Like they're huge. Like they govern so much of our lives. And when we don't deal with them, our body deals with them. And so it shows up as pain. It shows up as disease. It shows up as, even a broken arm can be related to, a call for help, right? Yeah. So,
or a sore shoulder.
Sore shoulder. Yes. Yes.
I'm starting to look at this maybe in a little
You're taking on too much.
Way.
You're taking on too much.
Don't tell. Do you know how many people are telling me that?
Why aren't you listening? Your body is telling you that.
Actually, my dad told me that recently.
Yes.
Did he really?
Physically, he's like, hey, my dad's like Superman.
Yeah. He
right. And but he's had his battles with cancer, and I thought we were going to lose him, recently.
Yeah.
In post-treatment, everything's done. Then, let's just
good.
give you one more thing.
Let's
give you one more thing, and then in 2 weeks, I don't know the dates because still trying to piece it all together. But I saw him age. It was all like he aged 20 years.
Yeah.
And
you can't poison the body to health.
But he told me you got to.
Yeah.
Hey, just so you know, because I'm still running hard, right?
Yes.
Like you're 20, I'll meet you on the basketball court. I'll be 50 this year.
Yeah.
You're 21. All right, game on, get it on, right? Like here we go.
That's totally how he does it.
And he's like, hey Seth, you might just want to consider, just like slowing down. I think actually the shoulder came through, I don't play as much football. It's not as frequent, so you don't necessarily move your body in that way all the time and quarterback, and it's just been lingering but growing and growing and growing. And this is 6 months ago, but I hadn't really thought. My dad said, hey, you might want to slow down. I'm like, yeah, right.
Well, if you have minerals in place, then you'll be fine.
Okay.
You can get going, but you got to clear whatever.
There's
you can ask if it's
there.
emotional.
I'll cut the friction. It's time to cut the friction. Just to be aware. So, I'm cool with that. I'm listening.
Okay.
Wow, okay.
Yep. I had shoulder pain because I sleep with my daughter and I nurse her. And so I'm always like, oh, it's just because I slept wrong, right? It's just because I slept wrong. But it just got to this point where it was so painful. Like I can't ignore it anymore. And I was like, all right, maybe I'll go. I was already seeing a energy worker, right? A spiritual healer, intuitive healer, right? Yeah. There's many names for kind of the same thing, but basically she just taps into my spirit, and because the spiritual plane is all one, right? We're all connected in the spiritual realm, and we all can access through the spirit. It's through the spirit that we can communicate. There's a scripture in, I don't know if this is a religious podcast, but in my religion, there's a scripture that talks about, what is it? No, I can't remember. I used it in Claire's passing. It was like this scripture that came to the forefront, and we used it in her funeral, and we talked about it because it was like this light bulb for us that, what is it? Angels speak by the power of the Holy Ghost.
Yeah.
And the Holy Ghost will tell you the truth of all things, and that kind of, I'm paraphrasing, but that is, angels speak by the power of the Holy Ghost. So when we have the Holy Ghost or the Spirit or the light of Christ, it is literally an energy field that we can access to gain spiritual insight. So when an energy healer comes and they can basically talk to my spirit, because I never looked at my spirit as a separate entity, right? But sometimes when you do that, you're like, oh yeah, my spirit is a lot older than my physical body.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it has a lot of knowledge. And hey, maybe I should ask my spirit or God, and God in connection with my spirit, right, for answers. So when a spiritual healer will come, they will ask my spirit, what's going on? What's going on with that shoulder? What's happening? And so she connected to my spirit and just, it was like, yep, this is a spiritual thing. This is something going on. And literally the next day we cleared it. Like basically it's utilizing the atonement. The atonement is instantaneous. It can heal like Christ healed on an instant, right? And when you access, it's kind of like repentance. You kind of need to have that acknowledgement first. And then you're able to repent, right? It's the same pattern with healing. You just need to acknowledge, your conscious mind needs to acknowledge it so you can be aware, and that so you can hand it over.
Because it becomes a decision and a choice.
It becomes an agency thing.
Yeah.
And so you're able to use your agency to then hand it over. And if your body and your mind and your heart is ready, then that's when healing can come in.
Emotional release.
Exactly. So that is the crutch of emotional release, is acknowledgement, letting it go, and then letting light. A lot of people in the spiritual world, there's different terminology, but for me, I combine it with my religious terminology, and it just gives it more strength because that's, it aligns with my beliefs.
Right.
And I think a lot of people, there's kind of this dichotomy of like, oh, religion, spirit. I'm like, you gotta, it can be married. It's okay. Yeah. And people go on their own journeys. Some people who are in the spiritual world convert to Christianity or and they're like, oh, it's all demonic. And I'm like, no.
It's all pagan.
It's all,
yeah.
When in reality, it's just different verbiage. We're all talking different words for the same thing, but I accredit it to God. I accredit it to him and his higher power because he is the source in my vision in my life. So
absolutely.
When a lot of times we'll take religion and make it almost one-dimensional.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we read from one-dimensional pages.
Yeah.
Right? At the same time, well, I guess they're not necessarily
two-dimensional,
but you know what I'm saying? We're looking at it flat. We're looking at it flat.
2D.
It's in this box. And belief, spirituality, spiritual intimacy, right?
Yeah.
With God, with the Creator. None of that is two-dimensional. None of that is solely two-dimensional.
No,
right?
It
is
5-12 dimensional.
It is infinite. It's infinite, right? And so I think it's really fun.
It crosses the planes of dimensions.
Yeah.
And that's where, for me, emotions come in. Emotions become our superpower as we learn that they are literally our connection to our higher power and to our God and our Creator. He gave us, that's how the Spirit works, right? It moves you. It inspires you. Like there's all these different facets of your body that it can communicate with. So you can communicate by that spiritual healing or that, that vision in your mind or those dreams. Yeah. Like there's so many ways that it can communicate. And I think we kind of get stuck on just the burning in the bosom or, those happy feelings. Yeah. But it's like, there's many ways that the Spirit communicates. And it's through our emotions, right? It's through sensations in our body. And that's what emotions are. They are sensations in our body.
Absolutely.
So
I'm gonna go back because I've been dying to ask this, but I didn't want to interrupt the pattern.
Okay, you're good.
Right at the beginning, you talked about women and their powers and motherhood and opportunity and responsibility that women have to fully become themselves. Not limited by our current social constructs.
Yeah.
Or our current medical construct. It is current.
Yeah.
Like we don't really think about it sometimes that women been doing this birthing thing for a long time, right? And so, as you're saying this, I'm just, my little heart's just like, jumping up and down because that's what Stephanie and I do in our mainline business. It's all about you're the CEO of your mind, your health, right? Your finances and
spirituality.
And your spirituality. You are the CEO and everybody else, honestly, is an advisor, right? So I'm all about that. I love talking about home births, right? And I think I can literally just see in my mind's eye women listening to this podcast and saying, like this being permission, saying, okay, I've been thinking this, I've been feeling this, I've been being drawn to really stepping in and unapologetically living that CEO life,
Yeah.
right? Taking those responsibilities, making those choices, learning.
Yeah.
And, that's this lady right here. She's doing all of those things, and being courageous and doing home births. And then you just took it to a whole nother level when you're like, we're going to do this unassisted. And I can literally see people like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like there's this
fear.
Yeah.
And most of it, honestly, is based on how we've grown, our current constructs, which is
Yes.
the medical community will save us. And I think even great healthcare practitioners, of whom there are so many, right? And we meet with them when we work with them, and they're here on this show as well.
Yeah.
It's a part of the story,
Yeah.
right? Can you speak to that fear? What do women need to do? How do they need to approach this, or how can they? I'm not going to tell a woman what she needs to do.
Yeah.
That's a lesson, man. Like I caught myself. All right. But I just know that there's going to be fear about, depending on where you are in the journey. Steph's like, hey, listen, I had this spinal tap and that sucked, right? And now I'm totally over.
Wasn't a spinal tap, but yeah.
Okay, sorry, whatever.
Epidural.
Well, it was
The anesthesiologist used a dull needle and punctured a hole through my spinal cord. And so I had a spinal headache because the fluid would go up to my brain. And anyways,
Yep.
So yes.
I've heard that happen quite
it's-
often.
It's bad.
Yeah. So I think first off, it's literally identifying that it's fear. Because once you can identify it and you know that the source of fear is not God, right? Fear does not come from God.
Yeah.
That's not one of his, regulating super
He doesn't have that button.
emotions, right?
Yeah.
He's not giving us the spirit of fear. And so when you acknowledge it first, you're like, oh, you can basically call out what it is and what it isn't. And so for me, you have to do it many times, right? So
Yes.
in preparation for my daughter Claire's birth, I met with a midwife at the very end because I had my in-laws who were offering to pay, it was very kind of them to offer to pay for a midwife, right? Because a lot of the reason we were compelled to do it was because financial reasons, right? That was part of I don't want to pay for a midwife. Especially in Florida, they're double the cost of what we paid in Utah. So, and with that, so all of Claire's birth story, there's so much dirt in here, right? So it goes along with what we're saying. So Claire's birth was my in-laws came in offering, but for me, I could feel in my body that fear, that it was stemming from fear that they wanted us to get a midwife. It was a kind offer, but it was also I could feel that it just felt fearful, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's so unknown. It's so unconventional.
Yes.
It's
scary what could go wrong.
How can you do that?
Yeah.
Are you being irresponsible for your baby, right? I mean, all those things I know are going through your in-law, potentially.
Yeah.
The people who surround you and even yourself.
Yeah, even my own.
Yeah.
There were many times I had to nip that fear in the bud because I had done 2 births before. And my first birth, I hemorrhaged. And so I had herbal tinctures, but then ended up needing Pitocin, right? So there was a reason, there could be many reasons that I could remain fearful about the birth because it's I've experienced this before, right? Or I needed stitches or whatever. And it was okay, so I go in and I address all of these fears. I look at them in the face. I say, okay, this is a potential thing that could go wrong, but I also include the spirit of teach me things that I might not already know or have experienced of what could go wrong and what do you need me to do in that situation. So my husband and I, we watched videos about how to do infant resuscitation because that felt really important and just things like that, but also just casting out fear. A lot of it was just because fear for me in my first birth was the catalyst for what had me retain my placenta that gave me my hemorrhage. It was the root cause of my emotional outcome And the physical outcome in the birth, because I was holding on to fear. I was holding on to expectations. I was holding on to performing for other people, performing for the midwives, because I don't think we take that into account very often, that other people's energy in our space really affects how we perform.
Well, just like when you were talking about how, when women live together and they have periods and they sink, it's kind of along the same lines.
Exactly. And so when someone comes into a birth space and they're carrying that fear, it can affect you or you. So for me, in my first birth, my family, they had all done hospital births. All of them had C-sections except for one birth. So there was that like underlying, like, what are you doing? Like everyone else needed this intervention, right? They needed the C-section. And so it was like, this could not have been more opposite. And so I had to kind of break the mold and be a pioneer in my family and do something very unconventional. And so of course that's going to carry on into my birth. And so that was a huge lesson for me. Like, I am grateful that I experienced kind of that medical crisis and knew that it could be taken care of. Like that my midwives were competent. I think first I just had to develop a testimony of midwifery to begin with and birth itself. But like, hey, my midwives stepped in, they took care of it. I was great. I was fine. Like nothing happened. And, in the case I needed to, I had the hospital as a backup plan. But as time went on and as I gained more trust in my body and as I gained more trust in my intuitive abilities, that fear goes away. Like that fear dissipates and then my body is no longer in a fight or flight state. Yeah. Like that is so huge in birth is being, I'm in fight or flight because I'm scared. That's what happens. Your body is protecting you. But it makes it harder to birth in that state. And so dissipating fear is like the biggest thing. Like in my fourth birth, man, she flew right out of me. And she was also unassisted.
That's called delivery.
Kind of like ours that was unassisted, unintentionally, but unassisted.
Yeah. So the birth I had, that was my rainbow baby after Claire. She was born 9 months to the day after Claire passed away. And she was born in the same RV and at the same location that Claire passed. And it was kind of this like full circle moment and born in the same way. And I had no fear. I mean, part of it was also emotional disconnect because I was in full grief, right? And so I was just like, whatever, I'm just trusting that it's supposed to happen the way it will. And she literally came out before any of my friends who I had invited to come photograph the birth or be assistants. I invited my sister because she still hasn't been to any of my births. She misses it every time. And I had no fear. Like, it just was like, I trust that even though I had lost an infant, and maybe it wasn't an infant in birth, but I still had a lot of fear. Like, what if this baby dies? Those are huge fears. And through grief and through loss, like the journey of loss, you have to reconcile that there is a time to be born and then there is a time to die. And that is designated. And that kind of set me on my astrology journey and all those things, because when you're born actually really does matter. And it sets the timeline for your life and it's shown in the stars. But that's just a side note. So that's one of my many tangents, my many facets of learning. But anyway, so that was what I had to reconcile, was very much like, hey, like if this baby is meant to be born, when it's born and where it's born and how it's born, like I had no plan besides like a week before. I was like, I think we're going to do it in the RV. So we spent a week cleaning out the RV that was very like, we brought it back from Florida. We hadn't gone back to it. We just had it and didn't go back into it until we were preparing for the birth. And that was kind of that was part of my healing too. I had to cry and sob that this was where my 11-month-old spent her entire life. And we still have it for emotional reasons. Right now, we're not ready to let the RV go, even though we literally can't afford it. But it's just, there's phases that you give things that you're ready to let go of. But yeah, so it just became this full circle thing and affirmed that I can do this and I can reconnect with my body, because I definitely completely detached. Like grief definitely does that too, where you're like, I do not want to live here anymore. Like, why do I have to stay in this physical plane when it can change in an instant? Like my daughter was just one day to the next, just gone. And like how easy it was for death to happen. Cause like we saw my grandma who was like literally begging to die.
Yeah.
Like, just can I just go? Can I just be done? Right. And then my daughter, who had a whole life ahead of her, and it was just gone. And it's like, okay, well, here you have to reconcile that. So,
just stepping back from when you were talking about fear and birth, that was something that I read Ina May Gaskin's book. And she's one of the pioneer midwives.
Yep.
And I was given that by my midwife.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful. I learned so much in that book.
Yep.
And how she talks about how people either being in the room or your own fear or something going on to where you can actually dilate and then close back up.
Yep.
Like that's how powerful it is.
Yep. The mind and the spirit like can be so powerful. And what we think and what we imagine, like that's why hypnosis works. Like just visualizations help you to open up, help you to relax. Like the mind is so powerful. Like there's a man named Dr. what's his name? Joe Dispenza. He's huge in like the spiritual world, right?
Absolutely.
He talks about the mind-body connection a lot and how like if you use visualizations and meditations to basically create your world, like you're creating in the fourth dimension and you're trying to bring it down to the 2-dimensional world, 3-dimensional world, right? That's why I work with art, because you're working in the 2-dimensional world, but you're using the fourth dimension. It's kind of these bridges of dimensions where you're pulling it in. And that's what birth is to me. It's that I'm creating something in the 3D world.
I think so many decisions are made because of fear.
Absolutely.
Right. And I don't want to say that women have it more than men, because I don't know.
No. It's our experiences are different, but it's all the same. It's just coming from different things, right?
Yep.
Men, their fear is, can I provide for
Different
my family?
fears.
Can I take care of my family? Can I protect them? Can I keep them safe? And then for women, it's just a different facet.
Something that I love and that also helped to connect me to you was sound baths.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I want to ask, actually, let me go back. So when I found out you were doing sound baths, and I had been to some previously, I was so excited. I'm like, yes, this is how I can connect with McKenna.
Yes.
And I'm like, thank you, God. Okay.
A reason.
So, yes. And I love sound baths. I think they're absolutely incredible. And so when I started asking my friends, inviting others to come with me, the biggest thing that I got asked was, that sounds amazing, but what is a sound bath?
Yeah.
So can you explain that?
They want to go, but they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I know. And even for me, like I first experienced a sound bath when my friend Matika, she's a writer and author, and she started doing sound baths. She does money manifestation. You guys should interview her next. But she started doing sound baths, and I was like, oh, cool. Like when you are in grief, when you are in like a huge emotional trial, like you will seek anything, right? You will seek any way to give yourself relief from this overpowering emotion. And so I started going to her sound baths to like, okay, like I'm curious about this. Like the thing that kind of sold me, she had shared a few reels about what sound is, and it's like, okay, like frequency. I had been studying about frequency and energy, and it's like, okay. And sound is just another facet of that, right? So any sound emits a frequency. And the thing that got me was there was this video of someone doing a sound bath, and the vibrations they had water inside the bowl, and the vibrations were just strumming through that water. And our body is made of water, right? Yeah. Mostly water. Right. And so water or sound actually penetrates 5 times more effectively through water. And so our body being made of water, those vibrations literally penetrate every cell in your body. And it raises you to a higher vibration. And what is vibration? You know, when we think of on the molecular level, atoms are always vibrating, right?
They're not stationary.
So this solid table, this is like one of the first lessons you learn when you go to elementary school, right? Science, like this solid table is not actually solid, and everything around us is made of mostly space.
Moving parts.
Right? It's empty space. So when you condense it down, like we would be tiny, tiny. And so what fills that space?
Water.
Energy.
Oh.
Right? No,
That's
you're
all
good.
right. That's good.
Water.
Like,
no, water.
Take two.
Water's molecular.
Take 2.
What fills that space?
Energy.
Yes.
We're keeping it all in.
We're good.
We're gonna edit that out.
I'll quiz you later. So energy, or AKA spirit, ether, the light of Christ. That's all different verbiage for energy, right? Energy is the light of Christ. And so when you emit those higher vibration frequencies, which we kind of live in a low vibrational state, like our world, the EMFs, everything is just kind of like lower vibrations. And when you're in a lower vibrational state, that's when you're prone to disease. That's when your body cannot stay alkaline. It's more acidic. There's actually studies, there's many doctors who talk about, they study this, that your body, when it's low vibrational, it is low alkaline or low higher acidity. It's higher acidity, right? And we've connected that to cancer. We've connected that to many diseases. So the sound penetrates every cell in the body, and it raises you and synchronizes you. Because this is what we talked about pre-show before we turn the cameras on. That's why we never do it with. It's like Joe Rogan does what he does, right? So our bodies it's natural in the world that you synchronize with the world around you. So if you are hanging out with low vibrational people who are negative and moody and whatnot, when mom's in a bad mood, everyone else is in a bad mood. Yeah. That's another version. Clocks will synchronize. The tick will synchronize together when they're close to each other. Women on their periods, if they live together, they will slowly align their periods together. That's all synchronicity. So when you submerge yourself in a sound vibration healing, so basically what we do, we come together, we get comfy, we bring blankets and we lay down, and I will play the sound for you. And it's usually an hour-long submersion into sound. And I just play these frequencies, and you just lay in it, and you hear it, but it's also more for your body than it is for your ears. Like it's pretty, and it actually can get you into kind of like a trance meditative state. Like you can just kind of like really get into it. And it just allows you to process, allows you to kind of, those vibrations will just cleanse your body. So there can be detox symptoms afterwards. People with tinnitus have said that there was a man who came to one of my sound baths who said, I've had tinnitus for a while, and someone played me a sound bowl and I like stuck my head in it, and the tinnitus was gone after like a day. Like just crazy stuff. It's like, but also tinnitus has a spiritual meaning too. It's oftentimes it's your angels who are higher frequency, like speaking to you. So when you hear that ringing in your ear, it's actually, it can be associated with your angels. So anyway, that's what sound baths are.
I'm sitting here, like I'm over here in a sound bath right now. I'm just thinking, are you kidding me? An hour of uninterrupted just sound and beauty and resonance and
Frequently I fall asleep in them because I'm just so at peace and
so
so relaxed.
I'd be out in like 7 seconds.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah, you can finally and that's when your spirit can kind of travel.
Well, And my nervous system, it's like it all just relaxes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is just one of the beautiful benefits. And as you continue to do it, like the first time I started doing sound baths, I had this little eczema patch on my hand. And every time I would play, it would get better. And every time I like went a really long time, it would get worse. Wow. So I'm like, I got to just get rid of this for good. So I started doing it like more frequently. And it was like the body wants to heal itself. But if we aren't providing it with high vibrations or low vibration foods and all the things, like we're just going to keep in this disease state, right? So the more submersion you can do in anything that raises your vibration will literally heal your body. So that's processing emotions. That's going to sound baths. That's just dealing with the stuff we just want a pill for. Because we don't want to feel things. That's our culture. We don't want to feel. We don't want to apologize. We don't want to admit that we're wrong. We don't want to repent. We don't want to take responsibility, and that's huge. Like
we don't want to make the decision sometimes. Sometimes I think there's a feeling permeating, our society, our cultures is.
Just tell me what to do.
Tell me what to do instead of, what we're working on here is let us show you what's possible.
Yeah.
Let's give you knowledge and light and love. And guess what? And some frequency and then you can make your own enlightened decision.
Yeah. And it feels amazing.
Yeah.
It does feel amazing.
It feels amazing to take responsibility when you make mistakes.
Yeah.
It might be hard to get through that, but it feels so good.
Yeah. And your body feels better, your emotions feel better. Like that weight off your shoulder, the lower back pain, the knee pain.
I did go to the physical therapist, but a friend of mine, and he was trying to do all kinds of stuff, all sorts of motion testing, and it's like I don't know.
Wrong.
Like maybe it could be this. Maybe your muscle just is a little inflamed here, and that rubbing is like. But I'm like we were pretty extensive, and we like it felt a little better when we were done, but 15 minutes later.
It's bad.
Or 30 minutes later, I'm like, oh yeah, it's just a little tight, right? It's just a little tight. It's like a lot of things in life. I mean, like I still play ball. I still do everything that I was doing, except that didn't feel very good.
Yeah.
But I could.
Addressing the emotions that are there.
Sound like interesting. I wonder.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's address it. What's there? You want to dig deeper? Let's dig deeper.
I'm not going to say no.
It's a call to action, honey.
That was. We just got called out.
What is it that you're taking on? Are you taking on too much? What are you shouldering right now? It's literally like when I talk like that, we think everything is just metaphorical, right? No, it's metaphorical and literal.
Just like the scriptures.
Yes. That's why the scriptures are so powerful, is because they are metaphorical, but also literal. When we start to read them literally, like it changes your whole world. And so when like when Christ, his bowels were filled with mercy, right? He proves right there in the scriptures that emotions are in the body. And so what are you shouldering?
That's a great question. This is probably not like an easy answer.
No. And it could go deeper. It could go deeper. Like, oh, I'm taking on too much in my work life. But it can also, when you want to dig deeper, it goes down to beliefs that you're carrying. So
core beliefs.
You carry your emotions, but then it always goes deeper. It stems from beliefs. It stems from identities. Your identities create your beliefs. Like, oh, I am a hard worker, or I have to be a hard worker. If I don't work hard, then nothing will result out of my life.
We just hit the vulnerability button. And I consider myself actually a reasonably vulnerable guy.
Yeah.
That's why I'm on the show.
Yeah.
Right? Guys men who know. Men who know. I just think we're in a major transition in our lives right now.
Yeah. And you feel like you have to do it all alone. Or you're trying to.
I'm certainly trying to.
Yeah.
Like I am like, yeah, we're just in major transitions in so many, like it's not just one dimensional. It's not like just one thing. Like, you know, we've been blessed from a business standpoint, but the market has changed too. Mm-hmm. And so now we're thinking, okay, how do we go into that next, how do we rebirth ourselves?
Yeah.
And bless more people. And I think I feel an incredible amount of pressure.
Responsibility, yeah.
And responsibility. And I'm a little scared, honestly.
Yeah.
That I'm not going to be good enough.
Yeah. All right. Now visualize that. Just giving it to God. You give that to God and He can take that burden. Right now you're carrying the yoke by yourself. You're not sharing that burden with Him. And as you do that, as you share that weight will literally lift off your shoulder. You will not be carrying that anymore. Just visualize light, truth, like anything that can fill your body with positive vibration. The atonement will literally just transform your body and help it heal.
I don't think you can hear tears on an audio podcast. You know, I feel like he's just saying, in a very loving, accepting way, why are you worried about this? Mm-hmm. Because we've already had this discussion. Mm-hmm. Like you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to carry it. I just feel like it's okay. Like we're good.
Yeah.
I heard something recently where, like recently, last 48 hours, kind of recent. I think it was Ed Milet, actually, who was talking about we are so impatient, programmed for a specific result. That's me. Right there. I mean, that is 100% me. And I've gotten used to it.
Yeah. You put in the work, you get the result.
Because we've been very successful.
Yeah.
Like it works. Like we have, and again, we're just at a, in a sense, I mean, that's why we're on this show. That's why we started this show.
Yeah.
Because some inspiration. So
yeah,
I guess
taking inspired action.
Yeah. And I'm also still shouldering the responsibility to make it work. Mm-hmm. And anyway, what Ed was saying, you're just, we're so programmed for this specific result, and instead of almost just letting it go, we're addicted. Oh, he said, I am totally addicted. Mm-hmm. We are addicted to that specific end result, you know, and sometimes maybe too fast.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And the result we envision, rather than the result that He envisions.
Right.
And He's got more in store than we can even imagine. Mm-hmm. And so, and I say that from not a belief in myself. That's literally Spirit talking, because I do not. Because
you're going through the same thing.
I'm not there yet. I'm not at that frequency. Like, oh, it makes me mad when there's all these like, oh, just raise your vibration and everything will come to you. You'll be magnetized. And I'm just like, yeah, nothing's happening yet.
Yeah. And yet that's what you're telling me.
Yeah, I know. But truly, like honestly, in the last week of my life, I have definitely felt a shift. And for me, I'm like, oh, I feel in a higher vibration. And already things are like coming to me. Like just this last month. So I host sound baths. I host Creators Club. I host just whatever whim allows me. In the wind. Yes.
That you ate for breakfast.
Whatever well, it's all inspired action, right? But it's in many different areas. Mm-hmm. But I work with women. I have a group who comes. We meet every Friday. We work on our businesses. We talk about our stumbling blocks. But then I also do sound baths. And earlier last month, February, I had scheduled a sound bath meditation with a breathwork practitioner. We were collaborating. And we kept putting it out there, like, hey, we're, doing the actions, right? No results. There was 2 people who wanted to come, right?
Crickets.
You were one of them. And it's just this isn't worth our time.
I was even trying to make it work.
Yeah.
I'm I want to go to this.
We are kicking against the pricks to make it work, right?
Yeah.
And I'm and I already knew, honestly, when I scheduled it, I just was I don't really want to do this. I was I don't really feel like it's what people want. I don't know. I was feeling resistance, right? So maybe it was my own resistance that people weren't being attracted to, right? So that could have been a component. But then once I canceled that, and I canceled this other one, the kids one that I was doing that was just I'm just not vibing with this, right? And then I took the action that I knew for a long time I wanted to do. But I just let fear get in the way, or just let reasons, right? And I was I'm going to do an art night sound bath because I just want to. I'm an artist. I love art. I think maybe other people want it too. But I wasn't basing it on validation of if my people wanted it, right? So I just put it out there, and I got 20 women at that event. It was see, if you just do the thing you really feel inside that you are meant to do, and not try to force the ones that are this sounds good. This is good on paper. I mean, it could have been a good event. We could have still done it, and people would have benefited. But my motives were off. There were just things that weren't in alignment, right? But once I did the thing that I was truly aligned with and truly wanted to do, people came, and I learned a lot. Hopefully the people who came learned a lot. There was some tweaks that I would do next time. I'd kind of finish it up a little bit better than we did, but it was amazing. And it was connecting and community building, and it was just what it needed to be. And so in that thread of me saying I don't believe I'm starting to see the witness of that, right? People talk the talk until you actually walk it. And now it's okay, I'm starting to see the evidence of me taking that action. Mm-hmm. So
I feel even us meeting, our marriage was kind of that. As soon as I was willing, I thought I'd be married super fast because that's what everyone told me. You know, I was in my mid-20s when I got divorced with 2 very little kids. Yeah. And everyone's you're cute, you're young, you're healthy, you're an amazing mom, you're going to be snatched up within a year. So that's totally what I thought. Okay, everyone's telling me this, so why isn't it, this should happen, right? And I mean, some people even telling me stories about, my person that I know, got married within a year, and my person that I know. And anyway, so
it's built that expectation.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I expected, and honestly what I wanted.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, I did everything I could to make it happen, going to all the activities with single people, just doing everything I could, going on a ton of first dates, but it just wasn't right. It wasn't the time. And then when I finally just okay, I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to create my list of what I want. I'm going to start working on those things because I need to be those things. Yeah. And then, a little while later is when we met.
Yeah. When you let go.
Bada bing, bada boom.
And here you are.
And honestly, it's been better than...
I was not like that.
We've talked about this frequently, just about how it's better than we could have ever imagined. Mm-hmm. Even going through it, I knew it would be more than I could imagine, but it's even blowing that out of the water, Yeah. Not to say we don't have our hard times, but...
No, that's true. But it's
we all do.
I mean, everyone does.
Yep.
But he's a good guy. I vibe checked him. He's good. He's got good vibes.
Why did I not think that you would do that?
She's got this scan. It's her scanner. She's zzz, emotional scan. All right. Adequate. Vibe check.
No, we all have it. We all have it.
We do.
You two have it particularly.
I do have
this.
it.
This lady's like a vibometer.
Yeah.
Well, that sounded weird. But
Weird and kind of cool. Yeah. I'm a vibometer.
Yeah. Yeah, like we all have it. We just don't recognize it or pay attention to it or are attuned to it.
Yes.
Like that first midwife I interviewed, I was like, absolutely not. Like bad vibes. She's like had the same perfume as my mother-in-law, or not my mother-in-law. She looked like my mother-in-law and she was wearing perfume, and perfume to me is like gagging. I can't breathe. Like I'm all essential oil girl now, but it's like that alone, I literally teetered with that vibe. Like maybe I just should hire her, Then I interviewed a second one, and she just put me at ease. And she said the one thing that like I needed to hear that gave me the strength to birth unassisted. She just said, babies want to live. They have such a will and strength to want to live. And I was like, oh, yeah, I believe that. And that's all I needed. Like she was that catalyst for me to finally be at peace with the decision I already knew in my heart of hearts was the decision I needed to make, despite all the fear, despite all the resistance and all of the reasons I could mentally give for, validating that fear, right? But I had to just step in to faith, and that was what I needed. So to kind of full circle that whole conversation.
Well, that's an invitation for us sometimes just to take that extra step and get that information. Yes, intuitively we know, and sometimes it's like, hey, God, what do you want me to do? And a lot of times it's silent because he's like, well,
it's like both options are great.
What do you want to do?
Exactly.
Right? Jesus asked his apostles, what desire ye of me? And they're like, and they gave different answers.
Yeah.
Right? And so inspiration comes from good information. Right?
Yeah.
Better inspiration comes from better information. So right, this didn't vibe for me. Maybe, maybe I should just stick with it because that's conventional or that's easier, or I'm afraid, well, let me talk to somebody else. Let me just do one more step. I feel like in our journey, and in your health journey as well, like very little of it is like, here's the entire grand picture.
Yes.
But we're getting these little visions, these little revelations, and they're starting
little intuitions. Like, I started somatic healing, and I probably would have never, I didn't even know what it was. It just popped up on my Instagram.
Yeah.
And I would have never done that if I didn't have that vibe and that connection of, I don't know what this is, but I need to do it.
Yep. That was my art class for me. I would just like, I heard about it and I was like, I need to do this. And it is my favorite day of the week. Art night. So, just do those things that you feel compelled. Take action.
I don't remember what we were talking about, like why I was bringing this up, but I just was talking to him about how I went to that art night, the sound bath art night, and how I was trying to create my art.
Yeah.
And how, like I was just getting frustrated, and sometimes I do that nervously. I just giggle. I just laugh and giggle. And I was doing that pretty much the whole entire art night.
Yeah. Like
to the point where people are like looking back at me. Like, yeah, I'm still giggling.
I'm so uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. And then you made this comment or this question, and I was like, oh. And it was, who taught you to stay inside the lines? I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, that's true. I have been told.
Who taught you needed instruction?
Yeah.
Like, so many people, so many women were uncomfortable with the idea of not having a step-by-step. And it's like, ooh, that just shows where we're at with our own, how connected we are to our own body, right? Because we're uncomfortable with, someone just needs to tell me what to do, right? Someone tell me which midwife to choose, or which path in my life to go. What direction? Should I take this job? Should I do this thing? And it's like, someone just tell me. I mean, how often do we do that to God?
Yeah.
Like, it's just that way, right? And he's like, I really honor and respect your agency so much that I will let you choose the path. And if it's wrong, I will tell you it's wrong, right? Mm-hmm. And so often we're just afraid to make a wrong decision. Mm-hmm. And like, what could it end in, right? Like, I've had to reconcile my wrong decision or the decision with my daughter. Like, she died but like I've, battled with my own thoughts of, mm-hmm. I should have done this. I should have done this one thing and it would have changed everything, right? It would have stopped her from passing away. Like, that's literally the ultimate right and wrong, right?
So tell me what I need to do so I don't have to go through that next time.
Right? Yeah. And so I disconnected completely from my intuition for at least a year and a half, if not longer, because I was just like, I didn't listen. I didn't listen to my intuition. Like, I had this thought. It was like an instant thought and I kind of pushed it away, right? And that could torment me for my whole entire life. That literally could drive me to disease and despair and death because I could let it eat at me for forever. But I have had to let go that this was her path, that if it wasn't then, it would have been a different situation, right? There just needed to be certain circumstances for her to pass away. And I've had to reconcile, I've had to just cope with that. Yeah, that's the ultimate, right? This decision, that decision. But for the most part, we're able to go down a certain path before we hit the roadblock that's telling us, nope, this is the wrong. This isn't right for you. And then you have that certainty. You have that certainty that you can switch paths and go down the right road and go down that right place to the path that you're meant for, or that's, in perfect alignment with your highest self, right? Mm-hmm. That's life. That's the journey we're on to become like God, to be able to be the ultimate decision maker, right? And the ultimate creator. And we can't create unless we are in tune with ourselves and in tune with our body, and we can listen to him. He's the main source, right? Mm-hmm. But oftentimes we seek that outside validation. We seek that outside source that just tells me what to do. Please tell me what to do.
Yeah. Honestly, like, it's really interesting because I feel like I've come away from that a lot of wanting to be told what to do. Mm-hmm. I'm just kidding.
Except for in art night.
Except for in art. Like, but at the same time, like, thinking about being like, oh, you need to paint this way. You need to paint. That also kind of stresses me out because it's like, well, what if I don't live up to that?
Yeah.
What if
perfectionism.
my art? Yes. Mm-hmm. I have a lot to learn with art. A lot.
Yeah. And that's like, it's so instructional for me. Like, my first art class this last year, I'm part of J. Kirk Richards Academy, and we all sat around with our first, thing, and we're doing figure drawing, right? I've never done figure before. A lot of us hadn't. There's some who had, but we're just sitting there like struggle bus. Like, all of us are like,
the
negative
bus.
Self-talk, right? We're all talking so negatively, like, I can't do this. Like, I'm so scared, right? So we're in this process of learning, and yet we're feeling like we gotta be up here. The bar is way high. Mm-hmm. And, throughout the semester and throughout our experience, like, we're all like gaining our confidence, right? And that's the same with intuition. That's the same with just decision-making in general. Like, you've got to just do and keep going and keep practicing, because that's what we're here for, is to learn. Yep. And so, like, we've all gotten significantly better in our art, and some of us still self-deprecate, and we still look at our stuff and we're like really uncomfortable showing it to anyone because it is vulnerable. Like, art is so vulnerable, and because it's an outward expression of like an inward thing, right? Where our emotions or our vision or, this concept we're trying to convey, we're bringing these fourth dimensional ideas to the second dimension to really like put it on paper and, present it to people. And
Yeah, I have
it's very uncomfortable.
I have a great imagination. I'm a very visual person.
Yeah.
And so I can totally visualize what I want to create.
Yeah.
And it almost never turns out
Yeah.
anything close to what I visualize.
Yeah, but sometimes it's that push and pull. Like we talked about on art night, like one of the girls was like, oh, like I made a mistake, right? I'm like, get some paper towel and wipe it up or wash it off or start over or cover it up. Like, and then through that process, because a lot of it is this push and pull. And like, it's the same with intuition, that push and pull of like, how much is me? How much is inspiration? How much, like, what am I doing? Am I on the right path? Right. And then you pull away and like, sometimes your artwork turns out like crap. You can throw it away and you start over, but sometimes it turns out way better than you could even anticipate. And that's like exactly what we talked about earlier. Like life turns out more beautifully than you can anticipate. And, you know, that's the artwork. Like we are literally God's artwork. Our lives are his artwork. So,
well, it was funny. So I was telling Seth about that night and I was like, okay, here, do you want to see it? Or he said, oh, I want to see it. And I'm like, I don't know. So I pulled out.
Brought it. I didn't bring it.
That's okay.
Stop by my house on the way home.
So I pull out my phone. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll be vulnerable and I'll show you.
Yeah.
And so I show him the video of the small square that I did.
Yeah.
And like, I literally was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, okay, I guess I'll just go for it. And so I started, you know, just picked a few colors that I love, some bright colors because I love bright colors. And just started doing like little dots all over because I love polka dots too.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know, just dabbing things with my fingers. I'm like, this is fun. It's playful. And then I'm like, oh, it needs more. So then I do like this big pink heart, just to outline. I was like, that's cute, but it needs something else. Like, no, this looks like my little girl did it. And and so then I started.
It was your inner child.
It totally was. She was coming out to play.
Yes.
So then I started, you know, I'm just going to get wild. I don't know if this is going to destroy it or what it's going to do, but I'm just going to get wild. And I just start like drizzling those same colors on top. And anyways, and then it ended up actually turning out pretty.
Yeah.
And
when it dried, I have it. I'm like, this is amazing.
Oh, that's so awesome. So then I was showing Seth the video and he was like, oh, what are you doing? I love like the heart, like the colors, it's all you. But then when it was done, he was like, wow, yeah, I really like this.
Yes.
Like,
She's explaining this to me and saying this was horrible. And I sat there and I didn't know what to do. And all these other ladies are doing other things and they're looking great and they know what they're doing. And mine looks terrible. And then she shows it to me. I'm thinking, so like, this looks great.
Yeah.
Like that's cool.
What's wrong?
Yeah.
Nothing.
yeah.
And literally, so the girl, your friend who you brought, who ripped up her painting, 3 or 4 other girls were like, oh, that reminds me of a Seurat or a Monet, or, you know, they're listing off these big artist names. They're like, that's it. Like, it looks like it came from that or has that same vibe.
Genre,
and it's like, she was so
Yeah.
distraught about her piece. And it was just like, you guys, like, and as artists, like in that room when we sit and we look at other people's art, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I love how you did this. And I love how you did this. And then people come to my art and I'm like, and they're like, oh, I love how you did this. And they see things that I don't see. Totally. And like, it's just like, we just need to embrace what comes from us and who we are and our individual gifts. Like I say that all the time. Like I want my friend's spiritual gifts. She can see things that I don't see. I'm like, I just want that. I just want that gift, right? And without stepping into my own and being like, I do magical things in my own way and in my own voice and in my own gifts that God gave me. I can't see it from the outside.
It's so true. And honestly, how boring would it be if we all had the same gifts?
Yeah.
It'd be boring. It wouldn't be as special or, you know, be able to connect and help each other if we all had the same gifts.
Yeah. Be yourself.
Yes.
So I heard this quote about art once, and it goes something like this: art is the one thing that we create just for itself. Right? Not even necessarily to be shown. Like it is an expression of our soul, right? I'm thinking about David's Michelangelo right now, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I like just to stand like that.
It does.
I see it. I get it.
But it's the one thing that we create just for the purpose of creation. Mm-hmm. And as part of my healing journey, I'm thinking, for me, in the work that we're doing, in our business, and even in our families, I've been so addicted to results because I've had a lot of results, a lot of great results.
Yeah.
And I think this next growth phase of me is solely for creative purpose and disconnect myself from needing to have the harvest when I'm still back in just enjoy
creation.
just enjoy creating. Just enjoy creating. Like this conversation, I'm not worried about anything. I'm not worried about any of the metrics, and like this has just been awesome. And I'm excited to share it because I know it's been enriching for me, for all of us, truly. And okay, I'm just going to focus on creation for our family goals. I've got these big 5 goals that we've got on our vision board. Oh, okay. So just for creative sake, just go create them, and then let the fruit, let the result fall off the tree. Come.
And it might
be naturally
astronomically bigger than you could even imagine because it came from that genuine space instead of that like results.
Forcing it.
So not to say you can't have that, and you can't have metrics and stuff because those are good tools, but you will attract more when you are in that creative space.
When I think where I am right now, having, you create several really successful businesses, and then you start something new, or you decide to reinvent yourself within your own business, and you kind of expect, hey, right? Whether, you had a 5-figure or 6-figure or 7-figure or multi-7, you just expect sometimes that, okay, like turn it on.
Yeah.
Well, just turn on the flow right now, go.
Yeah.
So this has been healing for me, and I thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think I pulled some stuff together from just our conversation just now I think one reason I struggle with the art is because of the vulnerability of people, like talking about how it's an expression of who you are, and then being fearful of being read wrong.
Yeah.
In my art.
But when you see that, people will read it and they'll look through their lens anyway. So oftentimes it's just a reflection of them in the end.
They may not even see you.
True.
How true is that in life?
Yeah.
People don't even really see you.
Yeah. Because they're looking through their own lens or their own trauma or whatever, and they'll see what they see, and that's like, oh, that's insight to you.
Yeah. It's been wonderful. So McKenna, how can people reach out to you if they're interested in, the different modalities or your art or classes or anything?
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram. It's just McKenna Woolley, 2 O's, 2 L's. And then I'm on Facebook as well. And then my website is Méora Studios. Méora means light. But it's also an acronym of my name, Méora, McKenna Ehat. That's my maiden name from Orem, Utah.
Okay.
But
so how do you spell Méora then?
Meora.
Meora Studios.com.
Yep. And I don't have my email thing set up yet. I'm like, I'm an artist. I need someone else to do the technicalities for me. But that's where you find me.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to get to a sound bath. I've not been to one.
Yeah.
So.
We were gonna do a couples one.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll do it again.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about.
Yeah.
See.
It's all these men, these resistant men.
I've got some creative ideas that we should talk about after.
Okay, sweet.
And cut. It's a wrap.
Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for sharing this episode with that one friend who needs this conversation. Thank you for all the ratings, the reviews, the comments, and especially the support. We so appreciate you.
Now, if you want to take a peek behind the curtain and be the first to know about special previews, backstage updates here at the show, and especially some private collection content that doesn't come out in the regular show,
be sure to join our VIP community at theforeveryoungshow.com.